'Tis I, Dr. Dementia! And I definitely put my foot in my mouth from the last video.
They estimated the release of July 2022! I haven't seen it yet! I just got Seaside!
Because I really didn't expect to get it this soon. The update pack just arrived, and it is now available. Okay, thank you. I didn't want to wait that much longer. And shockingly enough, apparently Hinterland's update pack is available also. We won't go to Hinterland's yet. That'll be down the line. Anyway, 9 cards leaving the set. 9 cards coming in. Let's talk about it. So we have 9 cards leaving the version 1.0 set, making room for the new 2.0 prosperity cards. They are Loan, Trade Route, Talisman, Contraband, Counting House, Montebank, Royal Seal,
Venture,
and Goons. So with Loan, I've talked about Loan enough to say that I absolutely hate the card. I don't want to discard or trash my more expensive treasures using Loan's effect to just mill through a good portion of my deck. It's not worth it for the cost, for the price. It's one of my most hated cards, and I'm glad to see it go out of version 1.0. Trade Route, while powerful in theory, there's a lot of ramp up that's necessary for it. Yeah, sure, you could add the dual victory cards in your Kingdom supply piles to maximize its overall potential, but by that point, you're basically able to probably afford anything greater than 8 anyway without having to rely on Trade Route. If you count 4 dual victory cards and the 4 basic ones, plus you're forcing yourself to unnecessarily purchase an estate and a duchy, so you're wasting a buy right there for something that you could probably get a lot better than either of those two, just depending on what's out there. Talisman, while always good to have workshop effects, especially on a treasure like this, you are limited. No victory cards for this, obviously, so you can't get a second copy of it. And above all else, you are using a workshop effect and offering up a buy to do it. I don't like that. I would rather play workshop and save my buy for something else. It'd be a lot better that way. Contraband, yeah, 5 costs for 3. That ain't bad. It's a little bit better than a gold plus 1 buy. Nothing to scoff at. But the fact of the matter is, you're basically having to mind read your opponent and basically hope for luck. And you need to force yourself constantly to keep placing contraband early in your buy phase so that they don't realize what you have available to you and try to second guess them. County House, good for the copy-based strategies. Nothing to scoff at there. But once early game is gone, that's about it. It's gonna run out of use, and at that point, you're probably going to either get rid of your coppers, upgrade them, trash them. There's not going to be many more coppers, and it's going to become a dead action card in your hand. Montebank, while one of the more powerful curse generators, I can understand. If your opponent has a curse, that's it. There's nothing else. You're basically sitting on a +2 for 5, and that's disgusting, and I would not want that. So, yeah. They could have just changed the wording on that and it would have been a lot better, but it can become, after a couple of uses, you're probably not going to be able to get much more effect out of it. Royal Seal, good to top deck. I mean, Harbinger, nothing to scoff at there, but it's a 5 cost card and you're generating 2 coin for it. I've seen other cards that look a lot better rather than using Royal Seal to top deck it, and again, Harbinger is a better option there. Probably wouldn't do it that way.
Venture.
On the other hand, while a very good for money generation, essentially, that's it. It is basically limited to just big money decks. If you're using anything else, it's gonna basically it's gonna mess with everything, and you don't need more than a couple of ventures. Honestly, it's limited potential. And as for Goons, it's a good effect. Obviously, Militia +2 at a +1 buy with additional victory point coverage. Overall, good for a 6 cost card. But how many of them you're going to be able to play? You're probably only going to get 1 or 2 of them if you really want to maximize victory point coverage on this. You're probably better off playing Bishop for getting more victory points at a cheaper cost rather than solely relying on this. Plus, it's not going to be a fun time if you keep playing Goons constantly on your opponent and they're just looking at their 3-card hand situation and it's like, well, this is a boring turn already, and basically continuously going non-stop. It is not a fun card. I mean, it is disgusting, but it's not a fun card. It's less than a possession, but prepare for a bad time.
A viable possibility.
Alright, so with that out of the way, we're going to talk about the new 2.0 cards for Prosperity. First one we're going to look at is Anvil. Anvil costing 3 to purchase, generating 1 coin. You may discard a treasure to gain a card, costing up to 4. Now, this is a vast improvement over Talisman in every way, shape, and form. and basically makes it so that you don't sacrifice your buy in order to take advantage of this card. And for that cheap cost, this is definitely an early to mid-game card, ramping up potentially anything you need to take advantage of this. Now, what's great about this is you can also discard a treasure to gain another treasure and then make a purchase on your turn. So if you sacrifice a copper, use Anvil to get a silver or an astrolabe, that's great. This also helps getting you some necessary victory action cards to be able to boost up your deck synergy. You can also get victory cards now. It is no longer, it's basically an option for you, but when you're looking at this card from its cost and from its utility, still not a great option, but still works. What makes this even better now is the fact that, again, like Talisman, you can use Bridge and either Throne Room or King's Quarter to really give you the potential of purchasing anything on the field short of a province or colony or platinum, which means you have some viability with this card without being restricted. And that is the key here. With Talisman, you are restricted. With this, you are not. You don't have to give up your buy, and you have more free reign of what you get to choose to purchase for yourself. This is definitely an early game card. If you can get this, get it sooner. This is better to get this before you get any other treasures, because then at least you can use your cheaper coppers to pick up silvers and astrolabes a lot sooner. Then once you start bridging, especially if you can play it multiple times, then you can get some golds. Then you can get some other treasure cards that'll be useful to you, and then some action cards that you know will work. This is a good way to gain, also offsets embargo pretty well. Definitely a fantastic treasure and a much better option than Talisman. Next new card we're going to look at is an action-reaction attacker card. First card of that type, Clerk. Costing 4 to purchase, +2 coin. Each other player with 5 or more cards in hand puts 1 onto their deck. That's the action attack. For the reaction, at the start of your turn, you may play this from your hand. Now, going into that reaction effect for a second, I want to clarify what that essentially means. That is, if Clerk is in your hand the moment your turn starts, you are able to play this at no cost to you. This is essentially a free silver with a mini ghost ship version effect, which is not bad. This will and this hand size attack is nothing to scoff at either. We've talked about Ghost Ship and how it can be potentially broken. This lightens it up a little bit. This will basically slow down your opponent's cycling, which will be good, because then they'll have a little more, they'll have trouble ramping up on their deck, but it won't be as potent as Ghost Ship's effect, making it essentially unplayable for them. And honestly, between 2 cards from Ghost Ship and +2 coin for Clerk, I would say Clerk, just because for that cost, it's easy to pick up, say, with the card we just talked about, Anvil. You can grab one for yourself and being able to enjoy it. This relies also on being able to top deck the card. So yeah, if you were playing Royal Seal, or if you were playing Harbinger, you could top this card and get ready for your next turn to be able to play it. This works well with a lot of draw power, because you really you don't need to spend. You don't need multiple Clerks to get +2 coin. You can do that with other cards as well that just synergize off of it. 1 or 2 in your deck is enough, especially if you can top deck. So you need a small deck size if you really want to work around Clerk. So overdecking is going to be a viable option here, especially if you can get a lot of plus draw power and a couple of extra actions here and there. Though thankfully with Clerk, you don't need it for that initial effect. This is definitely an I would say an early to mid-game card, because you basically can stop your ramp up a lot quickly and basically stall out your opponent long enough to get some more expensive cards than they can. They don't lose it to the discard pile. It just goes back on top of the deck. It gives them some chance to strategize how they want to play their next couple of turns, which can be a good or bad thing. It depends on the circumstance, but compared to Ghost Ship, they will at least be able to enjoy this a lot better. Overall, a good card. I definitely like it. Oh, and one more thing I should mention, Courtier. There's three types. Why not play Courtier on this? Next card we're going to look at is a curse generator that actually is the first of its type to change the rule on how curses are played. Charlatan. Costing 5 to purchase, +3 coin. Each other player gains a curse in games using this. Curses are also treasures. worth 1 coin. Now, right off the bat, this is a much better improvement all around than Montebank was, because what Montebank did was give you a copper and a curse. What Charlatan does is change the rules of curses so that it becomes a cursed treasure. It is essentially a -1 victory point for 1 coin. It basically combines Montebank and makes it force upon rather than being optional if the curse is discarded. Now, that might not be a bad thing. This is actually a fun way to implement curses a lot more without having them be kinda meh. And people can still work around discarding the curses, but at the very least, they have options for using it. By making a curse a treasure, this opens up some options. For example, Anvil. Now you can discard a curse in order to use Anvil's effect. Pretty straightforward, doesn't detriment you super heavily. Another good option, the effect of curses now synergizes well with mint. You can use your curses to gain mint, trash the curses, and boom. You basically saved yourself a lot of headache. This is a fun card. This is what Montebank should have been. Basically giving curses and treasures the same exact type, but if you looked at the Steam version, the artwork for a cursed treasure actually looks pretty cool. I liked the color of it. I really want that to come out. Like, we need that. This also makes curses viable for Courtier because there are 2 types now, so you get 2 effects for it. Another good option. This makes it so that even if you get a curse, it's not the end for you. You can work around it while still debating how you want to handle the curse. Mine is a it's perfect. It's perfect for these curses because it will turn it into something much better after you use it for whatever you need. So you have improvements over your trash for benefit card effects on these curses here. Slightly better. But overall, this makes curses not totally dead cards. For its cost though, it's a mid-game card. Just because it does require a little ramp up. And +3 coin on this, while each other play against the curse that is going to be worth 1, that's nothing to scoff at. I would play a couple of these. I could have fun potentially throne rooming or King's Courting this, getting a platinum right off the bat. Just having Charlatan and King's Court in your hand. That is great. One other ruling I should mention, Charlatan is in the black market deck. Even if nobody gains it, the curses will still be treasures. Could still make it a little bit interesting with, replace. If replace is on the field, you could see the chaos that happens. This is chaos, but on a fun level. Again, mid to late, this is a fun card. This definitely is a good way to change the ruling on how a specific card can be played. And I can definitely recommend this for a lot of decks and for a lot of options. Next up, we have another new treasure, Collection. Collection costing 5 the purchase, generating 2 coin and +1 buy. This turn, when you gain an action card, +1 victory point. So this alters goons to a utmost degree here. First off, the militia hand attack is gone. And second of all, the victory point tokens come from when purchasing action cards. Not a bad thing if you don't look at the cost so much, because this does require getting it as early as possible to build up your deck. I do not see this card being used in the late game because of that effect, but in the early to mid game, as if you can get it as soon as possible, this will build up some victory point coverage enough that once you have a good deck synergy set up with the action cards you need, then you can safely get rid of Collection without it having to be bad. And bear in mind, multiple copies of Collection are cumulative. If you were to play 2 of them and bought 1 action, you get 2 victory points. And if you play 2 of them and you get the idea. You can get a lot of victory point generation from this. So, this takes Astrolabe to a different level. You get 2 coin and the +1 buy with this victory point covered. This is a good upgrade to, from going from Astrolabe or Silver into Collection. I would say it's a much better choice to get this early on before you start going for silvers or platinums, because you're still building the deck. And that's the whole thing with Collection. Keep building the action cards that you need, get a victory point lead before you start even buying the expensive ones. You could outpace your opponent relatively quickly. Now, bear in mind they can do the same, but if you get it sooner rather than later, this is good. Here's the thing. On a 5-2 split, in the very beginning, yes, I could potentially get this, and I'll tell you why. Regardless of what's on the field, you want to be able to take advantage of that victory point increase as soon as possible. You don't want to wait for it. because then you just lose out on potential victory points that you couldn't have gotten. So, get it early on. If you can't, early mid-game, don't go any farther than that. You basically want to continue building off of your action cards. And the thing here is, it's a gain effect. So, if you played Anvil after playing Collection, that's going to stack on victory point coverage as well. So those two are going to synergize beautifully for an effect like this. And, of course, more buys. Get as many buys as you can, and you're going to be lovely. And Workers' Village is a good option to go off of. Also making Bridge a nice, fantastic option to take advantage of when Collection and Anvil are available to all at once. This is a good card, and this is a fun way to generate more victory points. Again, bear in mind, it's just for action cards and nothing else. Next up, we have another new treasure card in the form of Crystal Ball. Costing 5 to purchase, generating 1 coin. Look at the top card of your deck. You may trash it, discard it, or if it's an action or treasure card, play it. The hidden rule, if you choose not to do any of these things, you can leave the card on your deck. Now, Crystal Ball takes Lone, Venture, and Adventurer and combines them all into one, and I could not ask for a much better improvement over all 3 of those combined. First off, any of those effects are optional. You are not forcing yourself to get rid of an unnecessary treasure or an action card to take advantage of Crystal Ball. This is fantastic for top decking. Harbinger. This basically sets up Harbinger perfectly, because then you can just put it onto your deck. If it's an action or a treasure, you automatically play it, giving you a +1 in card advantage for that turn, and basically additional treasure. This also changes the rules slightly. You get to play an action during your buy phase. It doesn't let you play any more actions after that, but it gives you 1 other free action. So basically your goal for this are action cards that can generate coin. And that's all there is to it. If, for example, you drew into King's Court, then yeah, you could probably just play a coin generator from your hand, no questions asked. This is fun. This is fun. This fixes Adventurer. This takes care of the hatred I have for Lone, and this improves Venturer in a way that just is fantastic. Now, what is good is that you have viable options. You pull a copper, you can trash it. If it's a victory card, discard it. But if it's an action or a treasure, you automatically play it. It basically will handle any card for you. And this is also great to counter curse generators in any old fashion. If you knew you were done using curses, especially if Charlatan was in play, then you can just get rid of it without having to bulk up your deck with other cards. So this is a good trash for benefit effect. The benefit here is deck thin, and you can't argue with that result. However, you are only generating 1 coin for a 5 cost. This is definitely a mid-game card when deck synergy has already been set up, and you basically are just trying to feed through your deck. This is good in action-heavy decks and treasure-heavy decks, especially if your actions are generating the coin for you. So, it does require playing some extra action, some extra card draw, and Harbinger is a good synergy, for Crystal Ball. Again, mid-game card. This is fun in all of the right ways. Next up, we have another new victory card in the form of Investment. Costing 4 to purchase. It generates question mark. I don't know why it says that, because you'll see in a second. Trash a card from your hand. Choose one. +1 coin, or trash investment to reveal your hand for +1 victory point per differently named treasure there. Now, as you can tell, it's either generating victory points or 1 treasure. That's it. I don't know why the question mark is there. It's probably because it's a choice card. I can understand why. You have to choose. You trash a card no matter what. If it's investment, it's the last card in your hand, then you fail to trash a card then. So, this is a very one-shot timed trash for benefit effect for a victory point revolving around big money decks. This is basically where Philosopher's Stone, Bank, and your high-level treasures are going to be useful for. As long as they're not the only cards in your hand, you really need to have coppers in this to really work out well. You can basically just trash the copper for the +1 victory, +1 coin, but if you have more than 1 copper, then you can get a second trash available. So, it's a weird trashing effect. I can see this doing a lot better than Lone. Lone was decent, that a lot of people didn't like. So this is a much better improvement over it. Now, thankfully, you can still play the reveal treasures in your hand after playing investment, so that's great. This is basically just gonna sift through your crap, trashing it all. If you know you have at least a couple platinums and gold or a bank, you've drawn into your deck heavy, investment will take off. So, this is good for basically big money, huge overdecking. You basically want to have as many cards as in your hand, most of them being treasures, reveal all the treasures you have, trash in any unnecessary coppers or curses due to Charlatan, and then you gain a good chunk of victory points. It's a different way over collection to gain victory points. It's not bad. It's a little bit better because now you're thinning out your deck. Investment is your trash, it's your benefit. You are basically trashing for investment's benefit, and that's how they show it. You basically have to get rid of unnecessary crap to do well in the markets, and that's what investment is trying to tell you. It is a 4-cost card, mid-game. You still need your copies in the early game, you still need your cheap cards in the early game, and you're still building out your deck. This is straight mid-game. My opinion on it, it's definitely not loan. I like it for its trashing. You basically have an opportunity to trash one per turn with a second optional trash for more victory point coverage. So if you can get the lead early on, that's great. Definitely not a bad card. Alright, so now the next card is just a simple basic action card. First one of the set, and also the only one of this update pack, Magnate. Magnate costs 5 to purchase. Reveal your hand plus 1 card per treasure in it. This screams big money with good village support. You basically want the ability to have as many actions as possible and large amount of treasures in order to draw well. So, we'll start off with the obvious synergy of Workers Village, providing those extra actions you needed, not to mention an extra card and the buys. You need that if you have plenty of treasures. This is nothing to scoff at. You will basically, this will help you overdeck enough that you can definitely do much better with. Now, any treasure works. Any treasure. And if curses are treasures, that works as well. So, basically, since you're looking at the big money decks, you basically are going to want, you need it heavy. So, Philosopher's Stone, Bank, Platinums, Golds, Silvers, and Astral Labor too here and there, just to provide the extra buys for it. And you're and you need to make sure you have an action in order to play Magnate. So once you do that, then you can draw right into it. You need draw and action support in order to take advantage of Magnate, but you need it more so for the fact that you want to play more actions after this. Now, Throne Room and King's Court are fantastic for this because you basically will draw, reveal again, then draw, reveal again. You will basically draw into your entire deck, and if you at least have more than one buy, and trust me, you need it, you will basically be able to play every single coin and maximize victory point coverage to the umpteenth degree. Magnate is definitely a mid-game card because you definitely need some form of a synergy set up for it, and you need enough treasures in order to be able to fully take advantage of it. I would say at least 3 in hand. You could do this in the early game, but it's not as useful when all you're drawing into is copies. You need your more expensive treasures in order to do it. The ones I've talked about in this update pack, the ones in Prosperity overall, any of those, just get your best ones out there, and then go to town with Magnate. This is a fun card. Solely, this is the theme of Prosperity in card form. This is what it was meant to be. It's all about money, and this is the card that's going to help you get to that. Next up, we have the first treasure that is essentially a throne room in treasure form, and that is Tiara. Costing 4 to purchase. It generates no coin, but gives you +1 buy. This turn, when you gain a card, you may put it onto your deck. You may play a treasure from your hand twice. Now, this takes Royal Seal and Throne Room and combines it all together into a fantastic treasure card that basically works with any treasure card. So Platinum, so Gold, Astrolabe, Bank, all of those can be played twice. You have to play Tiara first in order to play it. A rule I should mention. If you play Tiara with a Tiara, you can play 2 treasures from your hand twice each. You don't play 1 treasure 4 times. This will apply to both to cards gained due to being bought, and then cards gained in other ways as well. So, Anvil. Excellent choice to fall off on this. You could play Anvil twice. And with those extra, if you've been playing bridges, you're gonna do so wonderful with this. This is disgusting, and I like this better than Royal Seal for one obvious effect. Yes, You lose out on the coin that would generate from it, but that's not what you want. You want that top decking effect. That's what's powerful. And at 4 cost, I see this in the early game and mid game, because you basically will have some free reign, and you will definitely get a good treasure early on. An astrolabe early on is nothing to scoff at, and a silver early on is nothing to scoff at either when you double it up with Tiara. This is a fun card. What can I say? You basically are giving yourself multiple buys. You're not losing any buys if you combine this with Anvil, and Bank becomes disgusting. This will stay with you for the rest of the game if you can time it right and you get the right treasure you need, because obviously by the end of the game with a plus buy, you're basically wanting to Tiara into a platinum to generate 10 coin, or a Bank to generate obscene amounts of coin. It doesn't matter. You want to use at least 1 or 2 Tiaras, go for your most expensive treasures, and hey, you have enough buys. Here come those colonies. This is a fantastic card. I love it. Definitely worth the cost. Again, early to mid game, you want to get this as soon as possible. Have it in hand. Yes, you're going to sacrifice actually generating coin off of this, but it's still a treasure, so you can still use this with Magnate's effect. I've got nothing bad to say about this card. You want Royal Seal? This is Royal Seal in a much better form. Pick this one up. And the final card we're going to look at, and the final treasure for Prosperity 2.0, is War Chest. Costing 5 to purchase, generating no coin. The player to your left names a card. Gain a card costing up to 5 that hasn't been named for War Chests this turn. Now, Tiara works great for this card as well, but I'll go into that in a moment. You might not think of it, but this is a solid upgrade to Contraband. Yes, you are sacrificing generating 3 coin for this card, but here's what you're not sacrificing. Your buy. You will gain this card in workshop form, and then being able to purchase the card you want immediately following that, which means you don't lose out on your buy, and you gain something extra from that. That is how you fix Contraband. You basically work on its effect rather than what it can generate. And yeah, losing 3 for 5, that's big, but War Chest at least helps you build up in this deck. So again, bridges work great. You're basically looking for cost reduction no matter what you do, which is going to give you a lot of good options, which means you're also going to want to focus on a lot of buys using War Chest. Now, this works great for Tiara for an obvious reason, basically. You can play this twice, and basically your opponent can decide which one to get. You pick one first, and then you gain another. But you can still top deck with Tiara if you played War Chest as well. So Tiaraing into War Chest is not a bad idea, because then you would be top decking 2 cards, and that is great. This is a fun way to workshop without having to play workshop, but you save your buy. So again, like Anvil, both of these cards work fantastically without having you to sacrifice a buy to be able to gain cards you need. And again, you can immediately using War Chest effect, you gain a card after that. Now, they don't have to name a card in the supply, and you still can get it. So them naming the card is optional, but if you know what they're going to go for, then that's fine. This at least gives your opponent some choice, but no freaking mind reading for you, because then you can still purchase the card you want afterwards. So limiting you to what you get on the same turn, and they can name the same card again with Tiara. That's fine. You still will be able to buy it again. This is a mid-game card because you're still building up, but you are not limited. So you can buy you can gain anything with War Chest effect. You are not limited to a specific card. So again, fantastic approach there. And again, cost reduction is a major thing. You don't want too many of these, 1 or 2 at most, just so that you're able to do it. But if you have Tiara, one is enough, is fine. You're basically looking for cards that you know are going to be good staples in your deck. Peddlers, Grand Markets, as well as Workers' Village. Cost reduction is going to play a huge part in all of those, as long as you play the actions for it. This is a nice way to round out the set. I like it. And with that, we are at the end of Prosperity version 2.0. Again, I love this expansion. It is my favorite, and these new cards just add some chaos to it in such fun ways. With that, though, we now move on to Dominion's 5th expansion, Cornucopia. A mini expansion like Alchemy. Not really mechanic heavy, but adding some new cards with some interesting effects should be fun to see coming up. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you have some time, please leave a like and a comment on the video. Every little bit helps there. And if you want to see more of the Dominion series in general, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Every subscriber helps out, and you will make this a much bigger community for Dominion than it should be. and I want people to be introduced to the game overall. Don't forget to check out my Twitter for updates, as well as my Twitch for streams, and we will, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.